Well, Scripture says that God doesn't change, right? James says in chapter 1 that all the good things that we received are from God, with whom there is no variation or shifting of shadows. He's solid. We can always depend on him. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So there is an immutability with God. But then this raises a question. If God is immutable, how do we have a new covenant? We have an old covenant. Now we have a new covenant. That's the question. Although people who raise the question don't realize even to have an old covenant would raise the same question, because the old covenant came with Moses. Moses comes 400 and some years after Abraham, and Abraham comes a long time after the fall. So there wasn't this Mosaic covenant, old covenant, in place beforehand, and then when it becomes in place, just giving well, in this case, that would be a new covenant from what had been before. That's a change in circumstances, in the way God is dealing with the world. How does that reconcile with an unchanging God? Well, it turns out there's no conflict. Because God is unchanging does not mean that his dealings with mankind in the world can't themselves undergo change. God has a fixed character. He doesn't vary in that way. He doesn't have a bad hair day and get angry and start blowing things up and calling down fire and brimstone, and other times he settles down and, okay, well, now we can manage God. No, God is constant in all of his perfections. Nothing about his perfections changes. This does not mean, however, that he cannot have a plan worked out that have steps and stages in which we do one thing at one point and one thing at another point. Those are changes in the way God is dealing with human beings. Those aren't changes in God. There's no discontinuity there in terms of the character of God. So there are changes. And we have the old covenant, which was new when it was given, because there wasn't any other covenant before that, maybe a kind of a loose covenant with Noah, as some have said. But the point was there was a way of dealing with man up to a time, and then God decided to rescue the world by calling a man, Abraham, and promising him a progeny and a nation that God would use as missionaries to the world. And that was his plan, and that required setting up a particular structure. And that included the Mosaic covenant as part of that organization. And when that was broken, the new covenant was given that could not be broken. The fact that there were changes in the operation does not mean there were changes in God. There just simply is no contradiction there.